In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Hello. I am Ryan Roxie. I am the host of the In the Trenches podcast. And this is a live stream episode. See, I'm switching it up. I'm switching up that intro. How you doing out there? Thank you very much for tuning in. Obviously, if you are tuning in to any of the visual platforms, I would like you to hit that subscribe button on the YouTube official channel or the Facebook Live. But YouTube is where we have a lot of guests assembled in the live chat. So we love you to be a part of it as well. If you're listening to us on audio only, which is Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and all the audio platforms, thank you very much for doing that. And make sure you eventually go over to YouTube official Ryan Roxie and subscribe, because we have a lot of episodes of In the Trenches. It's our 51st podcast today. So, and today's actually, I say a lot of these days are special ones. This is one of those that comes close to my heart, because basically our guest today, we have played in not just one band, not just two bands. He's the historian. He'll know how many bands we've actually played together in, because he was always the musical historian of each of the bands we've been playing in. He's the drummer, or, well, I have a little bit of a saying about that, but he's the drummer of the bands Candy, Electric Angels, The Loveless, and possibly more. That's what we're going to find out. And I've played in two of those three bands with him, and I consider him not just a friend, or not just the musical historian that I told you about that he is in each of the bands, but as C.C. DeVille would describe it, he's one of the best visual timekeepers of our time. He's a rock and roll drummer. Please welcome to In the Trenches, Mr. John Schubert. Hello, John.
You say C.C. DeVille, and it's just like you will remember that C.C. DeVille was something about fresh watermelon on a summer day, like listening to him play guitar was like watermelon on a summer day or something.
Listening to C.C. DeVille play guitar is like eating watermelon on a fresh summer. It was something like that. Was that Bret Michaels talking? See, out of the gate already, we got C.C. DeVille covered. Visual timekeeper. That's what didn't he call you a visual timekeeper at one point?
I think he may have. CC said a lot of things. He's a New Yorker, so transplanted to LA. So the New Yorker in him never really went away. And there's an interesting CC Candy connection too. If you can get into that later.
We are going to get into that all very soon. Thank you very much for making it onto the program. It does look a little bit like you're under the witness protection Wi-Fi plan that you have. So we are working with it. And John Schubert has moved to a few undisclosed locations in his house. But how is the Wi-Fi working for you? Can you hear me? Is everything all right?
Oh, you're crystal clear. I look a little less fuzzy than I did in the other room and in the room before that. So we're in the kitchen now, but the router is 6 feet away. So this is about as good as I can do it.
There it is. Right out of the gate, you have drummer friends showing up, and friends of the podcast In the Trenches, Mike Fasano, John the Hawk Schubert. Yes, the mystery of the Hawk will be answered a bit later. There it is. We have some Electric Angels fans as well. But as you know, on the podcast, we like to, first we have to go back to get forward. We like to go back and, sort of catch up with how we met, what our history is, what your history is, the early years, the interest in music, and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to take a long shot, because when I interview people that I have actually played with, I'm always amazed that I find out things that I never knew about them, So in a nutshell, I'm going to just take a stab at it. You're a California kid. Am I correct?
I am a Los Angeles native. Yeah.
But no longer. Not anymore. You said you moved up north.
I moved up north about a year and a half ago to the Mendocino coast, which is about 200 miles north of San Francisco. I mean, I can literally see the ocean right outside my window here. It's beautiful.
That is beautiful. Oh. Not known for its Wi-Fi, but it is known for a very beautiful view.
Sorry about that.
But I've always found that people that are native Los Angelinos, I guess you would say, are much cooler than what the reputation of people from Los Angeles has garnished over the years. Would you agree with that?
That's a hard thing for me to answer, because like LA is one of those cities where like everybody is from somewhere else, or half of them are. My parents were transplants to Los Angeles. That's where they met, and that's where I come along. But I can't, like, first of all, let's just talk about Candy and the Angels. Nobody's from Los Angeles except me. I mean, everybody else came out. So, I just think that's a lot of what you get in a city like Los Angeles. It's a city that pulls people because of the industries. And in the 80s, Ryan, the LA music scene was just a gold mine. I mean, everybody was getting a record deal except us. And so everybody was coming from everywhere. I mean, we know the guys from Poison all came from Pennsylvania. CC was from New York, but I mean, everybody was from somewhere else. Everybody in Guns N' Roses from somewhere else, except I think Slash maybe.
Slash is an LA guy as well, I think, perhaps. And possibly, who's a drummer?
So I don't know if the native Angelinos all like, hey, let me see your card. I mean, like, we don't check each. It is, but LA is just one of those cities. And again, like my second adopted hometown, New York, it's just a city where everybody comes to pursue their thing. And I think there's beauty in that, because the city is going to be, if you didn't see the news this morning, the mayor who was there while we were there was Dinkins. He died this morning, but he called New York a beautiful mosaic, and that's what it is. It's I like the mosaics. I like that there is everybody around. If you go to some towns, they're just monochromatic, and I don't see getting anything from the culture there. I love the fact that LA had all these different things for me to learn. And as a kid, I absorbed a lot of them, mostly from the radio.
What I remember about you, when I first met you, when I first joined in Candy, you were heavily into the Los Angeles sort of era of, I would say maybe 30s, 40s era. Would it be more towards the 40s, right? And you've always had this fascination with that era of Los Angeles, or was it, correct me if I'm wrong, if it was a different era?
No, that was just sort of like the thing I didn't do when I was playing drums. I was like an LA historian buff. I was an architectural buff, and right around the time I met you, all the books I was reading was all those pulp and fiction novels from the 40s, especially Raymond Chandler, which is, you can't read Raymond Chandler without having a partial understanding of Los Angeles. It just feeds into it. You have to have that two things. So I loved all that. I kind of, after we left LA in '89 and I came back to it in 2008, a lot of LA had been erased. There was a lot more people there, a lot of stuff coming down. And LA doesn't really hold on to that, so much of that old culture. Well, not old culture, old building. Like New York, you can still walk down 10th Street and every house is from the 1840s. So when we got to New York, I just was like, okay, this is my town, because it was all history. And that first year we were there, I just used to just walk around the city with guides and just like look at things, So now I'm a history teacher. So
there you go. We're going to get into that as well. But when growing up, did you see, wasn't Quentin Tarantino around the same area? Was it around that Redondo type of area?
Yeah. And in fact, I know he did. There's a right by my high school, and I went to a famous high school. Well, it wasn't famous, it was Torrance High School, but it was the high school that was used for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it was the high school that they used for Beverly Hills 90210. Beautiful little area, but right off to the side in the little downtown area, there used to be this old movie theater that in the 70s got turned into a Pussycat theater. And I think Quentin Tarantino worked there for a little while. But yeah, he shot like Jackie Brown at the Torrance Del Amo Fashion Square. He worked in Hawthorne, I think it was, at a video store. So he knows the South Bay really well, and he's used it a lot in his films. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I could see there was definitely a similarity of the appreciation for Los Angeles, so to speak, especially in, Quentin's last movie, which was
Oh, yeah.
obviously you must have loved that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you, John, before I get into the big three, which is Candy, Electric Angels, and the Loveless, because they all sort of seemingly slide into each other. Were there any bands before that 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 you sort of grinded your teeth and cut your chops on and all that kind of stuff?
Well, yeah, just for geographical ideas, if people are familiar with LAX, Torrance is about 10 miles, not even 10 miles south of it, down along the beach. So there's Torrance, there's Redondo Beach, there's Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, Palos Verdes, beautiful area. But I'm in Torrance, and there's not a lot going on in Torrance. I was playing in like a top 40 band that was just god awful, like 78, 79. And then at some party, and this is, I don't think I've ever told anybody this. At some
here we go.
I met two guys, and they asked me to join their band. And I said, okay. The two guys were Skid Rose, who I knew him as Chris Rose, and Johnny Love, who would eventually go on to be in Love
Hate. Yeah, of course, with Jizzy Pearl as the lead vocalist. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know any of those guys. In fact, we were a 5-piece. We had a girl sharing vocals with John, and another guy on keyboards. And I don't even know how to describe the band. It was all over the place. But I do remember I was rehearsing with them the night John Lennon died, and this coming up on 40 years in a week or something like that. Wow. The girl came running into the studio like crying. She goes, "John Lennon's just been shot." We all ran out to our cars, turned on KLOS, and waiting for the news and stuff like that. And then, the news came later on. We played one gig with that band about a week later. And then the next day they go, "Yeah, I don't think this is working out." And I'm like, all right. But then, as all beautiful things are meant to be, 2 months later, almost to the day, I meet Jonathan. And that also came about from just being in Torrance. You can probably remember when you were a kid. You remember the record chain, The Warehouse?
Yeah, the Warehouse Records and Tapes. Yes, they used to call it.
It was records, tapes, and funky junk when they first started, because they used to sell bongs and stuff like that. So I'm working at the Warehouse in Torrance, and I'm working there for about 2 years or something like that. And this guy comes in one day. It was January 1981. I can't remember the exact date. Sorry about that, but January 1981.
As you can see, folks, he is the historian of rock. You don't have to know the date. It was just in January. That's close enough.
Yeah, the date bothers me because this guy Gordon is to this day he's my best friend. So this is almost 40 years ago. He comes into the store because his girlfriend, he'd moved out from Connecticut. His girlfriend was already in Torrance working at the record store. So he comes to visit her because he just moved out here. And he says to me, he goes, "I'm coming out here looking to find a band. You got any ideas?" And I go, "Well, you're not going to find anything in Torrance. So go up to LA, get the Recycler, look in some ads, and good luck," like that. And so a couple weeks later, he phones me up and he says, "Hey, remember me? I'm that guy that came to the store." I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I found an ad, bassist and singer looking for a guitar player and drummer." And I go, "All right, let's check it out." Now, I don't really know this guy from anything. I've just met him, but we answered the ad. And here's my history. Sunday, February 15th, 1981. Wow. Me and Gordon, who have just met, go meet Jonathan and this English singer named Richard Rishi, who had this red Ziggy Stardust hair. And
not unlike the back of your photo right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And we play a few songs, and I'm looking at Jonathan. I'm like going, "Dude, you wrote these songs? Like, these are really good." So we stayed together for about 6 weeks or something like that. Played our first gig at the club that would become Club Lingerie. It wasn't even then Club Lingerie then.
In Los
Angeles, and then the next
day,
Jonathan calls up and goes, "Yeah, I don't think this is happening." So, all right.
Wow, there's a history of this. I don't think this is happening early on.
So I didn't really know Gordon other than this guy I met in a record store that turned me onto this band. We practiced, we played a gig, and then everybody is kind of like, well, I guess that's not going to work out. We all go our own ways. But sometime in the next few weeks, Jonathan called me up and said, hey, I got a couple other guys. You want to try having another go at it? And I'm like, all right, sure. And over the summer of 81, what would become Candy kind of starts to fall into place. And then he calls up his friend Kyle from Berkeley to come down and try out.
That would be Kyle Vincent. Yeah. We're talking about Jonathan Daniel, the principal songwriter in each of the big three that we're talking about with John Schubert's careers, whether it was Candy, Electric Angels, or the Loveless, and possibly some more bands as well that we haven't found out yet. But we are here with John Schubert and just catching up a little bit on the history and the origin of Candy, because I did not know that. I always assumed that Gordon, your best friend, was in Candy as well, but he was, and Gilby was also in on the band, which Gilby Clarke, folks, from you might know him from a small band called Guns N' Roses. But I always figured that you guys were playing together as a five-piece, and then somehow Gordon got Pete bested out of that group, but I'm not sure how that all entailed. Or did Gordon leave and Gilby came in, or how did that end up working? And what is, because you already have Kyle Vincent, who's the lead singer of Candy at that point, Jonathan Daniel, yourself. How does Gilby Clarke come into the picture?
Well, I would want to ever consider Gordon being Pete bested. I think we were all we might have all been kind of Pete bested. I mean, clearly Jonathan is the guy with the idea here, and he's writing all the song, and he's the guy who put the ad out. So we kind of came to him, you know. It's like he wasn't lording over the band, but you know, clearly he's the guy who's got the idea here.
There they are, folks. That would be the version. So again, Gilby Clarke comes into the picture some way, somehow. Again, not from Los Angeles. He comes in, some kid from Ohio, right?
Yeah, Cleveland. You know, and he had been in LA since he was
a couple years.
Yeah, for a while.
Okay.
Well, it's funny because so over the summer, Jonathan calls me back up, and the idea is going to be me on drums, Jonathan singing, and you remember Josh Fields on bass. And
yes, I played in a band with Josh Fields called The Unbelievable Truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then Jeff Rex was on guitar. So these are Jeff and Josh know each other from high school. Jonathan's going to sing. We tried this out for a little while, and we even tried auditioning guitar players. And Gilby actually came down. This is the summer of 1981, and he looked great. He sounded great. For whatever reason, we just said, no, let's just go with Jeff. And then, you know, like later on we go, remember that guy from last summer, you know, with the leopard
Give him
coat?
A call back.
Yeah. So Josh just said, yeah, this isn't for me. And he took off. Jonathan went back on bass. Let's call Kyle. Kyle comes down from Berkeley, moves down, and here's another date. On August the 1st, 1981, the same day MTV goes on the air, the three of us all move into an apartment on right off the Sunset Strip by Tower Records. So $600 for a 2-bedroom apartment in West Hollywood. So that's the beginning of that's
the day. Deal, folks. That's an amazing deal.
Yeah. That's the day I met Kyle, is the day he showed up from Berkeley with his car and full of stuff and his cat. You know, it's like, hey, okay, nice to meet you. And later that night, we all went to see Motley Crue at the Troubadour. It's like, welcome to LA, Kyle. Let's go check out what's going on here. And, you know, Motley Crue had their light boxes on the Troubadour stage and everything. So that's how it all comes. And so we play around with Jeff as our guitarist for about 6 months before that's not working out. And then we give Gilby the call. And in April of 82 or May or something like that, Gilby comes back into the fold. And that's the lineup that stuck. That's
that picture that Vic just put up of the whole entire band right there. Yeah. And as you can see, folks, at that point, you look at that picture and you think, man, why isn't Ryan Roxie in that band? Because at that point, you know, before I used to wear beanies all the time, I had that exact haircut, and it was that same it was the same brand of black azure hair dye that I think we all used. It was this. It was the same Aquanet that I think everyone was endorsed with back in those days. There's another early picture of the band as well. And somehow during that mix, again, going back to that black and white photo, you think instantly pop band, but you're not, because you have a harder edge. And that was always the beauty of Candy, is that everyone always respected the pop mentality of Candy, but there was always this sort of greasy, sleazy rock and roll vibe to them as well. So no one could say, hey, you're as cute as wow, that's Angeline, folks. If you know anything about Hollywood and pink Corvettes, that is Angeline when she was only, I think she's like 68 years old then. So that's she was in her younger years, and she might still be driving around in that pink Corvette. Have you seen Angeline lately?
I haven't, but I want to say that they were making a movie, because I saw stills from the actress who was, I can't think of her name right now, who was dressed up as Angeline, and then somebody
should be Margot Robbie. She would be great at it, I think.
That might be. I'm not sure, and I don't know what it was for, but Angeline was the original famous for being famous person. For all
exactly, that's everybody here in Stockholm. So here's the thing. Candy somehow involves itself in that first sort of wave of metal, and somehow you're lumped in together with bands like Wafts, Motley Crue, Rat, and how did that all work out as far as playing the gigs? Why was it? Because you guys had a extreme female following that the more heavier metal bands would hire you, or how did that work out, and how'd you fit into that scene?
Well, real easy formula right there. We brought the girls, and the guys go to the shows where the girls are. So, and I can't really remember all the ultimate details of it all, but I don't ever remember having any hostile response from audiences. Not really. And part of that is twofold. I think we played the Troubadour with Great White. We played with Black and Blue. We played an early gig before Gilby with Rat at some club in the OC. But I don't ever remember any hostile things because we were loud. Maybe that was part of it. But also, by the time we got off as the opening act, our kind of crowd would leave, and then the other ones would come in. So there wasn't like bottle fights or fist fights or anything like that. It just wasn't like that. Heads in a club are heads in a club. Everybody's welcome, and they always were. And I think lots of times our crowd would probably leave, and then Great White's crowd would come in, or whatever it happened to be.
But for some reason, I feel that Candy has this nostalgia. It has this credibility vibe of being a pop rock band sort of surrounded in a scene of heavier music. And that's another great shot of the band as well. Before I was in the band, are there any shots of me in the band, Mr. Vic? Or we're getting to that? Okay, we're getting to that. So I first want to talk about the album that was made, called Signed by Polygram Records. Things obviously look up. You get signed by Polygram. You make an album called Whatever Happened to Fun. The producer Jimmy Einer, who I always confused with Jimmy Iovine, for years and years, but Jimmy Einer, and some people just call him Teeth. I have no reason why that, but you have to understand.
Set of teeth, yeah.
Oh, he's got a big set of choppers.
Yeah, big chopper.
Okay, well, there you go. Big choppers, sort of Matt Dillon style in Something About Mary, I guess. But this is the same producer that's produced bands like Bay City Rollers, the Raspberries. He also did Three Dog Night, and I'm not sure if you even know this. He actually produced the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. That was Jimmy Einer. But there it is. That was the album cover of Whatever Happened to Fun, Candy, right there. We put that up real quick. And how was that a whole experience working with Jimmy Einer?
It was interesting.
Okay.
Well,
It's politically correct.
let me go back a ways. I don't really remember how we got to anybody's notice because we've been knocking around LA for 3 years. But for whatever reason, we came to notice of the management company of KISS, which was Howard Marks on Madison Avenue. They were managing KISS at the time. KISS was signed to Polygram Mercury, and because KISS might have, and they were doing well. This is Lick It Up, Time, Animalize. What's the I Love It Loud, Creatures of the Night or something like that.
Yeah. Eric Carver era as well.
So we come to notice of the Howard Marks agency, and because he is with KISS and KISS is with Polygram, the A&R guy from Polygram starts coming around, and that was Jerry Jaffe. And so we got the deal with Mercury, Polygram, but Jerry signed us. And, I can't say that it was just a favor to Howard because KISS is on the label, but either way, we get a record deal after a lot of years of playing around the clubs. And then we start going, who do you want to produce? And we ran down a couple lists, but Jimmy was right up there. And the thing that he had done right before us was, God, I know he did this. Frankie and the Knockouts, if you remember that band, he did Frankie.
I do remember that band. Yeah.
The drummer would eventually go into Bon Jovi's band. Oh, yeah. And by the way, Jerry had signed Bon Jovi as well. So,
folks, and Jerry Jaffe is a very important figure in our careers because Jerry Jaffe, who signed Candy, again, ends up managing Electric Angels a little bit later down the road. So that whole thing of people that you're jamming with now, people that you're working with now will probably lead you and help you with your next shift of your career. It holds true again. And that's why John Schubert is telling us about all this history of Candy leading up to the point where you've made this record, Whatever Happened to Fun. You went on tour. And this is the stuff that kills me because you made this great video, folks. I'm not sure if we have a little clip, Vic, of Whatever Happened to Fun, but if you want to put that up right now. Oh, Vic is shaking his head. No. I'd love to do this to Vic. But it's a great video, Whatever Happened to Fun. They go on this huge tour. I think you did Rick Springfield tour. Am I correct with that? You did Rick Springfield. You did Corey Hart. I wear my sunglasses at night. You do all these big tours with screaming fans, and then I get to join the band afterwards, and we do none of that for a while because how did we meet, and how did that demise of those two tours? Things changed obviously when you got off the road.
It both of those. Well, the Rick Springfield was literally somebody must have canceled, and we had a friend at CAA who just called us up. Can you guys be in Cedar Rapids, Iowa tomorrow? I was like, why? Rick Springfield. Yes, we can. It was the band Till Tuesday. Amy Mann got sick. Somebody at Creative Artists just said, let me get these guys. They have a new album out. It hadn't come out yet, actually, but it was about to. So we're in Cedar Rapids the next night. And I've said this. I wrote it on the Facebook page for Candy. Literally, this is what happens. The lights go down. Ladies and gentlemen, Till Tuesday will not be performing tonight from Los Angeles. Here's Candy, and then the lights come on. And now I don't know how many kids were there to see Till Tuesday, but I thought it was a great show. Rick was playing about 7,000 seaters. So like college basketball arenas, but they were great. For us, it was just like, oh my God, look at all these people. But we did the best we could. We did a couple of shows with him, and then he got sick, and we just went back to LA. And then the album came out. And it wasn't until about another month that Corey Hart's people called us up, because we'd actually filled in for a sick Corey Hart with Rick Springfield about a year earlier. So for whatever reasons, we got the tour, but it was really weird. It was like the first show was in Miami. We fly to Miami. We do Miami, Orlando, something else, Tampa maybe, or something like that. And then they go, all right, thanks, bye. Okay, just fly back to LA. Then they go, can you be in Atlanta tomorrow or whatever it was. And we just kept doing this little piecemeal thing until they finally said, you know what, why don't you just stay on the road with us? And we're like, that might be a good idea, because we just kept flying back and forth between LA and all these other little cities. But once that happened, then we ended up doing the whole country with him, except Los Angeles, oddly. But it was great.
But then you guys get back to Los Angeles and there's a little bit of a pause with the band. And that's when, at that time, I'm playing with an artist called Jeff Scott. And coincidentally enough, the biggest gig I ever played with Jeff Scott was opening up for Tell Tuesday 2 nights at the Palace in Hollywood. And that was by far the pinnacle of my career with Jeff Scott. And then a lot of people are coming up to me saying, you know, Roxie, you should be in this band called Candy, because they all look like you. They have the same hair. And I was wondering if there was anybody that was coming around to you guys saying, maybe you should check out this guy Roxie, because he kind of looks like you guys. And we all had the same black leather jacket. We all had this, like I said, the same black spiked hair. And there it is. That's what whose hair is bigger, folks? And that's me and John the Hawk Schubert right there on the right hand side of that photo. And that's Gilby Clarke next to me, and then of course that's our illustrious songwriter Jonathan Daniel right there. Wow, whose hair was bigger? Did you get that same thing when you were sort of scouting for another player? How did I get in your band? I guess is like,
well, you know, I know I saw Jeff Scott at some point. I mean, it was Wong's. Everybody saw everybody at Wong's, right?
Madam Wong's West, right? That was one of the staple clubs of Los Angeles during that time.
And Jonathan had been, you know, when we weren't doing our Candy thing, he was booking the bands at Madam Wong's West, so he knew you. And I think you know, he knew you, and he's the one who brought you to the rehearsal that night, because we had just parted ways with Kyle, and here's how long we've known each other, right? It was December 1985. The last Candy show was Portland on December the 2nd, and then Kyle just wanted to go do his own thing. And for a couple of weeks, we just said, well, I don't know what we're going to do, but we were supposed to make another video. We were supposed to go to Japan. We had all this stuff in the pipeline, and we were just trying to put a band back together. I'm not sure if Gilby knew what he wanted to do, stay with it or do something else. But we met you. You were like one of the first guys we met, and it was like, this works right away. And so, yeah, it's 35 years now. But yeah, you fit right in. Gilby kind of wasn't sure, and then he came back to Candy after we tried a few singers out. You'll remember. Oh,
dude, we tried singers out. Like, so I get in with these guys, and the date that you just told me, because I did the math of myself. It was my 20th birthday. I wasn't even 21 yet, and I was December 1st. 85 was my 20th birthday. I'm associated a couple weeks later. I'm associated with this band called Candy, which is one of the biggest bands in Los Angeles, folks. They have this record deal. We would get into clubs. I remember one of the first appearances that we sort of made together as a group was at the Roxy Theater on Sunset, going to see Guns N' Roses opening up for LA Guns. Do you remember that show?
I do. Yeah.
I think we all collectively went, holy shit, who is this band Guns N' Roses?
Yeah, that was the impression that they would give in a club. You would come out going, well, first of all, if you could hear when you came out. I remember seeing Guns N' Roses at the Whiskey and just going, I think my hearing is permanently damaged. It was the loudest thing. And it was funny because later on when the record came out, you're like, oh, this is how that song goes, because it was just so sonically loud. You couldn't even tell what Welcome to the Jungle was. But then on vinyl, you're like, oh, okay, hey, it's a pretty good song. But when you're in there, it just sounds like you're standing in front of a jumbo jet. So But yeah,
I remember listening to the beginning. I remember the first time I ever listened to Appetite for Destruction. It was on cassette tape in the parking lot because I think Jonathan, because he booked Madame Wong's, he got an advance copy of Appetite for Destruction, and I went out to the parking lot and listened to it in my car. Oh my God, that picture, Vic, is bringing back some crazy memories. That building in there was so decadent. Folks, if you knew Madame Wong's was, didn't it started out as a mortuary, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, wow. And then it became a rock club and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm telling you, folks, this is
you're absolutely right. I do remember going out to the parking lot into his 240Z and listening to Appetite going, wow.
Things are changing.
That's a statement, yeah.
Yep. Well, we did try a lot of singers out, and because my memory is hazy because of my, old fashions that I like to drink these days. Do you remember some of these singers that we tried before Gilby came back into Candy and started singing? Because I know one of them was Ricky Rackman of the world famous Cat House, and when he came down to audition, Ricky and I just became really not good friends with each other and stuff. And then we just ended up hanging out with each other because he had another club called Ice or something. But do you remember some of those other singers?
There was a guy named Miles who had fronted a band in LA back when the Starwood was still open. So this would have been 80, 81. Jonathan would have seen the band. I can't think of Miles' last name. He was a good singer.
He was up there. I thought we almost had he was definitely on the top list.
We made a demo with him. I don't know if I have it anymore, but we did make a demo with him. He had a great voice. I just don't know that there was that X factor or whatever the thing is, that's how we met Ricky. This is something I want to say. We tried out John Cicada.
Really?
There was a couple of guys that we tried out who were really good, but we're just kind of like, it doesn't really see like. But I want to think that because later on, I saw some guy on TV and I go, I think we tried this guy out, and I want to think it was maybe John Cicada, but I don't. I'm just that part of I think it's because of the trauma of losing the band and all that. Like those 6 months of '86 are just sort of lost to me. That's my just fuzzy period because I just wasn't
us talking about this, Hawk. Just us talking about this. I remember Vicky James Wright from the band Hurricane Alice, I believe, tried out.
You're right. And it's funny. You'd think that we would be able to walk around and go, hey, we're Candy. I mean, us. We've been around the scene for 4 or 5 years. We have a deal on Polygram Records. You want to try it? And everybody was like, nah. I remember we tried. We went down to Retail Slut on Melrose and talked to Tammy Down, and me and Jonathan said, you want to try out for our band? He looks cool and everything like that. He goes, I'm kind of putting this band together. I'm really into it. And we're like, okay. But it's just like, couldn't really get anybody interested. I think we reached out to Michael Monroe through having managers. I think we might have even reached out to John Waite. I can't remember, but I know we reached out to Michael Monroe, and there was just nobody was interested. And
were you with me that opening night, that the Faster Pussycats first show at the Central, which is now the Viper Room? Were you did you go to that gig as well with me?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
All right. Yeah. And I remember, and just to wrap up that whole singer audition, there was one guy, and I don't know who it was. He just kept going to the bathroom and coming out really, really energized. He'd sing a song, then he'd go in the bathroom and go, I think he's doing coke.
Oh, yeah. God, you see, you remember more than I do.
I do remember more than, I mean, now that it's all coming back to me. I remember that exact, because wasn't that rehearsal studio that you had way out in like Los Feliz or something like that? It was at the end. It was the end of the road of Melrose, I think.
Yeah. That's right. Wow. That's exactly the right place. Paul.
Oh my God. So what ends up happening is we end up getting Gilby back into the band, and Gilby starts singing in the band. And we actually, there was one guy. Wait a second. Before we did a show at Madame Wong's as Candy X. Do you remember him? Little Dio.
Little Dio, yeah.
What was his name?
Jeff something. I can't remember his last name. And he was from the Bay Area. And I remember
he was a good singer.
Yeah, he could howl. But I remember everybody at Madame Wong's just like staring at us, going, like, what are you doing? Like, this is how you replace Kyle. But yeah, that didn't work out.
It didn't work out. But I remember that back in the day, you would design all our, whether it was Electric Angel posters eventually or Candy posters, you would be sort of the graphic artist for it. And I'm not sure if Vic has any of those old posters or flyers up of what you would do, but there's some good Electric Angels ones. Is there any Candy ones that you had actually done though?
I don't have them scanned, but I do have them.
Shit. All right. Well, we'll have to put that up somewhere, you know.
It was fun. I enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. I really did, because you know, I used to, when I was a kid, I was really into illustration, and I wanted to be a comic book artist before I ever became a drummer. But so I really enjoyed doing that. Was something for me to just say, here's sort of my contribution to the band, because I wasn't the good guy going out and passing out the flyers at the clubs and promoting the band every night. That's not my thing. I'm too introverted for that. But you guys did all that. I'll do the flyers. Yeah.
I did it a lot. I remember passing out a lot of flyers that would immediately get passed to the ground. I think I actually, my carbon footprint is so damn big right now because of those damn flyering days of the 80s, man. But do you remember our first gig that we played? I want to say that it, like, with Gilby, and the first sort of official gig with all the pink guitars and all you know, and the whole hoopla. Was that the LA street scene?
I don't think it would have been. No, that would have probably been in September. And I think we started playing in June. I think Gilby finally came back to us in June after our little failed singer search. So I want to say June. And honestly, I have all this stuff written down. I don't have it at my disposal right now, but it might have been the Roxie or the Whiskey.
Okay. But do you there's a great shot of that, Vic, of the Roxy Theater. I mean, that's still there in Los Angeles. But do you remember that Los Angeles street scene show? Yeah.
I do. I have some pictures of that too. They're pretty epic. I was a redhead at that time, but yeah, we played the street scene the year before with original Candy as well, and we opened up for Run DMC. You just can't get
perfect fit.
Weirder than that. We were sharing a dressing room with Run DMC, and they went on right after us. After we finished talking about the kids in the city, they come up and, you know, do whatever they're, I don't know.
Well, at one point, and this is where my memory gets a little bit fuzzy, Candy sort of ends up splitting into two factions. And one, it's basically, you know, the three of us, Jonathan, myself, and John Schubert, are one faction. And Gilby Clarke it's always been amicable. I would like to say there was nothing unamicable about it, but we just ended up splitting. Gilby went on to form a band called Kill for Thrills, and from Kill for Thrills go on to GNR, which we all know in the history, and then obviously come back to his solo career, where I came back to his band as well, but that's a whole nother podcast to talk about. We're talking about this faction of the Electric Angel faction, and it's me, you, and Jonathan at that point. We go on another sort of singer search, but this time we find the front man of Los Angeles, I think, you know, and again, another out of towner that's come in, but you know, this guy just commands the stage, and that would be the single named Shane. So how did he come into our lives? Do you remember? And what year was it?
It was 87. And, you know, to bookend the Candy 2, the Ryan Gilby Candy, if Gilby came back into the fold like in the middle of 86, we played until November of 87. But it's funny because that was the Candy that was really fun. Remember, we used to go to Phoenix on the weekends and play with the Gentlemen After Dark, and we had so much fun being in a band. It was really nice. And of course, we have two guitar players to really beef up the sound. So that was a fun candy. I actually, now that I think of it, it was kind of short lived, but it was fun. But here's the crux of it all. And the same thing happened with the Angels. Reheating Leftovers, the band that has splintered with the record deal and everything's kind of on the shelf, it doesn't work. But you're so invested in making it work that you can't really see it.
Wow, that would be one of those fun times that the Candy 2 sort of had, because we were obviously big Kiss fans, and this was one Halloween. Thank you for this Vic. This is not a Vic pick actually, but it's me being I was looking at it as me being Ace. I was Ace. Gilby Clarke is Paul. You were obviously Peter Criss, and Jonathan Daniel was Gene Simmons. It's pretty authentic. I think that's in Gilby's apartment on Melrose Place. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, that's right. And we were on our way up to, I think,
the Central.
Ricky Rackman's Halloween party at the Central. So I think that's Halloween 87 maybe, which means we are only a few weeks away from wrapping it all. I don't remember, honestly, I don't remember any kind of falling out. I think Gilby just saw that, like, Candy, we're just limping along. And you don't want to kill this thing that you've put so much time and energy into, but it's really like we can see things are going in a different direction. So, he started putting something together. I think he even actually asked me if I wanted to come play with him, but I kind of say, well, you know what? Jonathan's kind of like my guy. I'm his lieutenant, and I just stuck with it. And we all agreed to just say, let's just do one final show. It was at the Roxy. Kyle came back and sang with us, and we just said, okay, after this.
I remember that show. I watched it from the top view down. I think I played some songs, then I went up to the dressing room, and then Kyle came up. I think the last song he played was a song called Last Radio Show.
Yeah.
And that was it. With perfect ending.
I can't even remember if it was just him and Gilby playing it, but I think we did a complete show, and then Kyle just came on to do a couple of songs. He might have done the Last Radio Show. I don't remember if it was with a band or just him and Gilby, but it was all, to me, it was all friendly. And we had met Shane like just a few weeks before, and I think Jonathan nicked him from Josh Fields. Josh said, hey, I'm a really cool singer, and Jonathan just said, I got that.
Do you now?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Tell me more.
And we started rehearsing with Shane even while Candy was just getting ready to be put to bed, because Shane was at that show. So this is early November 1987, and both our new band, Electric Angels, and Gilby's new band, Kill for Thrills, we both debuted at Ricky's New Year's Evil on New Year's Eve 1987. So it only took us about a month and a half to just both put two brand new bands together and actually debut them on the same night. So
that's amazing. That's
kismet, I think,
You know what the other amazing thing is, folks? We now have John Schubert with really good internet. So let's cross our fingers. You're looking great, my friend. And everybody that's in the chat, thanks for hanging out. If you just joined us, hit that subscribe button right now on the YouTube official channel. If you're listening to us on the audio platforms, you know what? Pull your car over or stop what you're doing and get on over to Ryan Roxie official YouTube and hit that subscribe. So thank you very much. We are here with John Schubert, just catching up. Every time I think that, we're just going to go through this going bad to get forward really quickly. Just to give a quick recap, when I'm really invested, like I am right now, I'm intrigued about this story. And I'm intrigued about what happens to us. and I remember from Electric Angels, after that New Year's Evil debut, we end up working, and this is where Wikipedia can mess you up, because this is a non-fact, folks. This is fake news. Wikipedia page says that Bruce Kulick managed us, which is just not true. He did, though, produce some of our first demos.
Yeah.
And one of the songs on that was, I think, was it You Put the X in Sex, or just the X in Sex? Was that the name of the song?
I think we just called it X and Sex. Yeah.
X and Sex. And then really coincidentally, about 6 months later, Kiss comes out with a song called "Let's Put the X in Sex." Now, how did that first demo come along? And how did Bruce Kulick enter into our orbit? How did that work out? Do you remember? Was it a Wayne Sharp thing? And Wayne Sharp was helping co-manage the band at that point, and he was involved with Howard Marks, or it had some sort of Kiss connection still with the Kiss. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can't tell any of the story without Wayne Sharp. Candy met Wayne in spring of '85 when we went down to Florida and New Orleans to do a series of dates. Wayne was working for a local promoter down there, and the guy he was so great. He helped us out so much. He ended up coming to LA, and then he just wanted to he got real jobs like in the entertainment industry, but he just wanted to do what he could for Candy. And then the Angels, and I think Wayne, he was working for Howard Marks. He might have been, he was Kiss's tour manager around that time. So and I think he and Bruce might have, I don't know, they lived on Doheny or something like that. But
what apartment was it? What apartment was it that we went to some sort of Christmas party? There was a Christmas party with Wayne Sharp, Bruce Kulick, Gene Simmons, and Shannon Tweed, and Shannon Tweed's sister were there. We did a sort of a Secret Santa giveaway, and that's when I received my ice cream maker from Gene Simmons, and he was so mad that it was me that got the ice cream maker because I think it was the most prestigious gift that was at the gift giving, and he didn't want a guy from a rock band to get his ice cream maker, but I did, Gene, and I don't have it today. I'm telling you.
I do remember that party. I do remember that party. You know, it's funny because when Candy was with Howard Marks and we were in New York, one of the pictures that Vic put up there where we're standing in front of metal grating, that was our album cover shoot. We'd run into Paul Stanley. We'd run into Gene Simmons. They know who we were. Yeah, that was on New York on our album cover shoot. So they knew who we were. Gene and Paul knew who we were. In fact, you'll remember one time, Candy with you and Gilby, we were rehearsing once, and Paul came to rehearsal with Howard Marks. And then we all went out to dinner later because Paul was in town to maybe produce this band called Guns N' Roses, and he passed. And we all went out to dinner later on. So I'm not saying we're best friends, but we knew them. We got to go to the shows if we were in town. We actually wanted Paul to do a little quick vocal thing on the Candy album, but because they were in town at the time. So Bruce Kulick is just kind of falls into it, and he did do the demos. I think we did 3 or 4 songs, and then he goes on tour with Kiss, and the next thing you know, they got that song. But you know what? I didn't like that song anyway, so let him have it.
And we didn't have it on the album, but the other 2 songs, which I think that we produced with him at that point, do you remember those other 2? That Tiger?
We did Tiger, Home Sweet Homicide, maybe I Live in the City.
Okay, so I live at So anyway, folks, these become Electric Angel songs, and we're no stranger to big rock guys starting to take some sort of notice of us. It wasn't just the Kiss guys. Again, Jerry Jaffe, who had signed Candy, starts managing Electric Angels. Jerry Jaffe always is also good friends with John Bon Jovi, and John Bon Jovi starts to enjoy the old Electric Angels to the point where one of the lyrics of our songs sort of again gets transplanted to one of his songs. How does that story go? I know a little bit.
So I don't know where I saw it, but somewhere there is photos and I think video of Bon Jovi playing at Jerry's wedding, which was held at the Hard Rock Cafe on 5th Avenue and 12th Street or something. The one that had the big lizard on it or something like that. You might remember that. But yeah, this was before Bon Jovi was big. They played at Jerry's wedding because he signed them to the label. Jerry probably got the album somehow to Bon Jovi's camp. You'll remember in Circus Magazine, we have him saying, if I was going on the road right now, I would take this band with me. The songwriter is really great. And I would love to see him like paired up with Rachel from Skid Row and write songs together, something like that. So, And then while we were on tour in the
why
summer,
didn't you take us out on the road? Because of this. Because at this point, folks, I mean, and this is after the deal, but before the deal, we're playing everywhere. We're playing in Los Angeles. We played everywhere you could get arrested, but we couldn't get signed. Do you remember all the bands that we opened up for in Los Angeles?
I have Roxie. I have every single Electric Angels thing written down in a logbook. I just started writing things down. I don't know why. On that very first day we played our first gig, I said, I'm just going to write this stuff down. And pretty soon it's just page after page. We did in 1988. We start basically on New Year's Eve, 1987. And then we're leaving LA almost a year later. In 1988, we played like 65 shows, which is a lot for us.
For a club band, yeah.
Club band. But we played with Zodiac Mind Warp. My all-time, one of the best memories is getting to open up for Iggy Pop at the Fillmore in San Francisco. I mean, it's Iggy Pop, We played at the Greek Theater opening for Richard Marx. Because John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band couldn't do the gig. He was backstage with us, but we went out and played in front of a bunch of Richard Marx people that were like going, kind of stunned.
We also played with a bunch of bands that were more of the English sort of indie sound. And that was a little bit later, the London Choir Boys. That was one of our first tours that we ever did. But I'm still talking about LA area with the Scream, Balaam and the Angel. And do you remember those clubs? Was it Janice Garza's club, Dale Gloria's club? It was the Scream. What else was it? English Acid or something like that?
The Underground, the Cave one. That was English Acid, wasn't it?
Ricky Rackman's Cat House, of course, and then the usual suspects, the Troubadour, the Rainbow, the Roxy. But I mean, we would play pretty much anywhere and everywhere, right?
Yeah, and Scream downtown LA was like, that was amazing. What a great building, what a great stage. We did good that first year. We played a lot, and when we got to New York the next year, we played a lot then too. Just before we went off and made the album, we were going out of town doing gigs. We were.
That was the thing. Before we got the deal, we would play up and down the East Coast. Wasn't that one of the reasons why we moved to the East Coast, Electric Angels? Because one, we couldn't get a record deal, folks, in Los Angeles. So, and here's the thing: don't ever be so bummed out that a record company passes on you, because the same record company that passed on us in Los Angeles ended up signing us in New York, right? Now, do you remember the show that we got signed at?
I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was. It could have been two things. Again, I'm not.
Get your notes out, historian.
I wasn't working the audience, but if you remember, we did a gig at this club called Downtown. It was a basement club down on Lower Broadway where we played with Mother Love Bone and Dogs D'Amour. And
it's true.
Mother Love Bone was on first. Eventually, two of those guys became Pearl Jam. Then us. Then the Dogs D'Amour. I think. What's his name? I forget his name now.
Toby Emmerich.
There you go. I think Toby might have been at that show. If it wasn't that one, then it was probably at the Lone Star Roadhouse.
No, I actually think it was that Downtown show. I never knew the name of that club, but I do remember Dogs D'Amour, that show. I remember the guys in Mother Love Bone, the singer who unfortunately passed away a couple months after that. I remember him walking down the hallway saying, "Dude, the drummer just put a lit cigarette out in my eye." It was like, okay. And he was kind of happy about it because, and I think the drummer's name of Dogs D'Amour, I think is Bam Bam. Was that his name?
Yeah.
There it is. And Tyler, and of course Joe Dog, who Gilby ends up playing with years later in his own solo stuff. So this is a great time. We get the deal. We get to go make the album that we always wanted to make with one of the best producers of rock and roll music. We get to make an album with Tony Visconti. Vic, do you have a picture of Tony Visconti right now that you put up? He's shaking his head. Dang. But tell us about Tony Visconti and what was the decision made for us to actually use Tony?
I'm not sure.
Besides him being so great. I mean, the guy in back of you, the picture in back of you, he produced Dave Bowie. He produced all the T-Rex albums, and this is us actually. This is me and Jonathan and actually Tony Visconti's son outside the studio that we ended up playing. This is one of those things where I would usually save it for a little bit later part, but of the show, because where let the people speak would happen. But Wayne Sharp, I actually had a little bit of an email before this podcast. He wanted me to ask you, Wayne Sharp, the man that helped co-manage our band, what are your fondest memories of the whole Tony Visconti experience and, working at Good Earth Studios in London? Because we were just basically kids. And this was my first time ever going to Europe. Was it yours as well? Or
It was mine, and sadly, that was the last time I was there.
Wow. Okay.
Well, here's one thing that's good about it, because we were on a budget. We did the album in like 5 weeks, 4 weeks maybe, with including 4 weeks of working, and then we were only there for like 5 weeks or something like that. Whereas the Candy album, we were in a studio for 2.5 months, so everything just got kind of stale. But in the Angels album, we just went in and bang stuff out. And I liked Tony because Tony was a creative person. And some of my fondest things about being in London were the things that Tony turned us on to. He would take us to restaurants. Here, you got to try this food. He took us to hear the Bulgarian women's chorus.
My God, with Gregorian chants. Just by you saying that, I just remembered it. Oh my God. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah, you've never heard people sing harmonies like that before. They were just they're so Eastern European and ancient sounding, and they were phenomenal. That's what we're doing on a night after tracking all day, is we're going out and doing stuff like that. I mean, he also turned us on to Bulgarian wine, which was, I remember, quite good. But Tony knew about art. He knew about culture. Jimmy, back in Candy, he was just sort of business. He would just sit there and just look through the glass, and he didn't really offer very much. So he was but Tony's kind of an enlightened kind of guy. He's a Renaissance man. And he brought some of that creativity to us by trying some tricks. I don't remember which track it is, Roxy, but he said, let me try this thing where you play 2 guitar parts on an acoustic, but one of them I'm going to slightly speed it up. It gives this sort of weird chorusy kind of sound to it. But he said, this is an old Mark Bolan trick. So,
yes,
and we did a couple backwards tapes, and then then he brings in that string section. I mean,
I think he used to tease us. There's a song, again, the song that Bon Jovi sort of liked so much that he ended up borrowing a line from it. The song is called True Love and Other Fairy Tales. Our bed of roses has become a bed of nails. And I believe that's a little bit similar to John Bon Jovi's line. I mean, note for note. But I remember when we were recording it, we were going to record it, he would always come into the studio. We go, what about that string section? You got it all worked out? He goes, I got it all up here. I go, how much? He goes, about 83%. And it wasn't until like almost the last day of recording, right, that we went in and all those guys were there, right? And he had it done.
And here's another good thing about Tony. Tony knows how to score. So he wrote all these parts out, and then he brings these 8 people in, the Astarte Orchestra of London. One of the guys was the violinist for ELO, like back on the first or second album or something like that.
I didn't know that.
And he brings them in, and they basically just sit there, tune up, and then he says, rolling tape. They just sight read the whole thing. They were in and out of there in an hour and a half. And I remember that day very clearly because it was very gracious of you to say we were kids back then. That was my 30th birthday. Birthday. And I'm watching the string thing, and it was just beautiful. And they did True Love, and then they did a couple of little bits on all the money in the world or something like that.
Money spells love. Folks,
And
if you want to check out the Electric Angels CD, the first one of the Electric Angels music, good luck finding it. I can't find it on Spotify or anything. I found the second one. We actually made 2 albums, folks, with Electric Angels. One, though, just recently got released. That's our first album cover. And there you go. That would be all the clothes that we basically found. That would be the second album cover, which is funny. The second album cover is from a photo shoot while we were in Los Angeles, but that first album cover, those were all the clothes. Yeah. Do you remember, John, shopping? Because it was more not just the music, it was the fashion, right?
Right. Well, we had one day off a week, and we would go hit the Camden Market or that great little street that had all the antiques on it. I forget the name. But yeah, we left New York in leather and we came back in velvet.
Look at I'm literally that hat that made the album cover. That I found that at some sort of street market. I think I wore that for about maybe 2 years straight. So yeah, I was wearing there you go. And
that's so great.
Now, did you take all these pictures, or where did you get all these shots from, John?
Yeah, I took these. I took those.
Wow, that's the reason why John's not in the photos, folks, because he's the one that took the photos. And afterwards, there's a good shot of us at a museum, I believe, in France, because at the Louvre, because after the album was done, you and I took a little bit of our own little vacation, right? The other guys went back to New York.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to see Paris forever. And sadly, I haven't been back because we were there for like 3 or 4 days. I was staying with a friend of my brother's. You were staying with some friends that you knew from New York. But we went out one day, we went to the Louvre, which was great. We just went knocking around. I went up to Montmartre one time, and I just absolutely fell in love with it up there. We
got to come back because we have a lot of our folks in the chat are from Europe as well. Everyone that's in the chat, thank you for hanging out. We're hanging out with John Schubert right now from Candy, Electric Angels. We're getting to the Loveless, but you know what? I'm having too much fun talking about Electric Angels, and I know that it always goes longer than I think. But and Vic is like, he's not rushing me at all. He's not. He's smiling and he's enjoying it too. I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. But honestly, folks, I think right now at this point, I'm going to take a really small break just for a minute. And we'll come back. We'll wrap up our little going back to get forward. And then we'll talk more with John Schubert. But right now, here's a really quick break about the System 12 Guitar Challenge that is coming up this week right now, folks. So any of you have been inspired by wanting to play guitar, who knows, maybe you want to play drums. I'm not sure. But here we go. This is our little...
Hello, Ryan Roxie here. And we know you're excited to begin the System 12 Guitar Method. And to provide you with some added incentive, we are presenting you with a challenge, the System 12 12-Week Guitar Challenge. The entire System 12 team will be involved in helping you stay focused and stay inspired as we coach you through each System 12 lesson. Each week, we will release an insider's video that will give you goals, tips, and tricks on how to make the most out of each lesson. We will aim to create a community of encouragement and support as we will all be learning together. Do you accept the challenge? Will you make it to the 12th week? We know you will. And by the end of the challenge, you'll be playing the guitar just like you've always wanted to. Join now, prepare yourself, and let's get rolling. Because the System 12 12-Week Guitar Challenge is coming your way.
Bam. We got some music in this. We got some a little bit of some words in there. We're putting it out there. If anybody wants to check out a little bit more about the System 12, just go to ryanroxie.com/system12. We appreciate it. Oh, there he is, Brian Klesmowski. Yeah, it is great to reminisce with John Schubert because just by talking about all this kind of stuff, it's bringing back a lot of these memories. So we come back from our little, sort of vacation in our Euro vacation. Now it's time to it's business time. We have to make a video. Who do we choose to make in our video? We choose, well, actually, because I feel that she really liked our singer in a cool way. She I wouldn't say it was a crush, but I think she definitely had. There's Shane, our singer, at that point. He happened to be friends with one of the biggest female actresses of that time in that era, Christina Applegate. And I feel that Electric Angels will go down in history of underutilizing the most utilized, the most accessible video rock chick of all time, Christina Applegate. We did not actually maximize that opportunity. Would you say that is correct with our single Rattlesnake Kisses?
Well, she's in the video, but she's not in the video with the band. She was there the same day. This was a one-day shoot, but we did all the stuff in the performance part, and then somehow they just shot her against a curtain or something like that, and then they just wove it all in. There's one picture of us posing with her or something. I don't know if I have it scanned or not, but we didn't actually. She wasn't.
She was here in the room, and we did not use her as a video rock, which in all senses of the word, we didn't need to, because she was just such a class act. Christina Applegate has always been a class act, always will. She's one of my favorite, people that, like, back in those days, like, she was a real person. She really was. And she came out to do this video for us as a favor. So yeah. We kind of we almost felt like maybe we shouldn't take advantage of this and sort of milk Christina as a video rock chick. We'll keep her mysterious. So I'm not sure if you guys want to go on down the YouTube rabbit hole, you can check out Electric Angels Rattlesnake Kisses video, and you'll see Christina Applegate. And if I have to tell you who Christina Applegate is, Married with Children was basically it was the height of her at Married with Children, right?
And I think recently she might be up for an Emmy or something for the work she's doing right now. So good actress.
I love the news show that she's done.
And we hung out with her once at some TJ Martell cancer benefit or something like that. We went down to this charity event with her while we were still in LA. But yeah, she came out there. I don't recall her charging us or anything. I think she just came out on her own dime, put herself up in a hotel, and came to the shoot that day, and then went home. But it was she did it out of being nice, and I think that's really speaks a lot.
No, she's always great. I remember, she would again. I remember in the Los Angeles days, Christina would every once in a while want to throw a party, so she would rent out a room and she would invite us for some reason. We were like her, sort of go-to band guy friends. Yeah. And honestly, she might have had a tiny bit of a crush on Shane. I'm not sure if she did or not, but
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. I love it.
Let me tell you a story, because this involves you. I'll sidebar really quick, as long as we're talking about actresses.
Please
in
do.
the Ryan Gilby Candy, right? It was yes. April of '87. Remember, we used to rehearse in the back room at Madame Wong's in the liquor room?
Yeah. Until you just said it just now, I blocked that out of my memory, I think, because there's a lot of things that happen at Madame Wong's West that I think I need to block out of my memory. But now that you remember, I remember we practiced in the liquor room.
Wow. Which was just 10 feet behind the stage. But we had a gig in early April '87. I got a call from Wayne Sharp at Creative Artists saying, one of our actors' little sister is coming out to LA to audition for a movie, and she needs to know how to play the drums. Can you show her how to kind of fake it for her screen test? And I said, okay. So as we came out of the liquor room that evening, because the club was going to open up later on, this would have been 6 o'clock or something like that. She was waiting out there in the club, main room. You three went on your way, and I took Julia Roberts back into the liquor room and showed her how to play So Fine by the Chiffons, to mimic she's playing the drums. So
Julia Roberts at that point in her career was Eric Roberts' little sister.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that.
Film yet. And the film that this was for was called Satisfaction, with Justine Bateman as a singer. And Julia Roberts was up for the part of the drummer. It was, would have been her first movie. And I drove her back to the hotel after spending an hour and a half in a room with Julia Roberts. And I said, like, good luck. Like, I gave her my phone number, said, let me know how it goes. I hope you get the job. Well, they gave her the job. She ended up being out in front as the bass player because she's photogenic. But I don't know, the movie kind of got panned. But after that, she made Mystic Pizza, and then Terms of Endearment, I think.
Or maybe there was a little one called Pretty Woman. Maybe there was something that happened afterwards. I'm a little bit fuzzy about Julia Roberts' career, but I
remember going to the movie theater in Sunnyside, Queens with Jonathan to see Pretty Woman. I'm going, okay, this girl is like going to be really big, because she just had that. But, I tried to show her how to play the drums, and I guess I'm a bad drum teacher, or somebody else is a better casting person because they go, put that one up front here, but I've never seen the movie.
Well, speaking of beautiful women, let's talk a little bit about Steve West and Bruno Ravel and us opening and us basically touring the world with Danger, because that was our first tour, folks, with Steve West. Did you like that little segue? Of course, Steve West. A lot of beautiful women on that tour, but even Steve West and Bruno Ravel, the most beautiful. Of course, Andy Timmons, amazing drummer. And God, now I'm going to be singer. Please give it to me. Don't leave me hanging, folks. Help me out. Ted Poley. There you go. And the keyboard player. Oh, now I'm really reaching. Now, see, I put myself in a hole. When you start remembering everybody's name, you have to remember the whole band name. But we did a couple of those US tours with Electric Angels before we finally sort of parted ways. Again, maybe it didn't seem so amicable back in those days, but now I'm looking back upon it. We're still all talking. We're still all okay with things. But we did Danger World Tour, or not World Tour, but US Tour. They had a tour bus. We had a van. What was that? Was that Danger hazing us?
That was the last show of the tour at the Chance up in Poughkeepsie. And they basically came down and shaving creamed and glittered us and threw silly string all over us and stuff like that. I was kind of mad because we had a week off before we were going out with the choir boys, and I had to spend a couple of days taking my drums out of the case and wiping all that crap off of them. So but then a week later we were out with the choir boys for a week or two or something like that.
That was their first. I've actually had Griff on the podcast before. Yeah. That was, I believe, their first North American tour that they had ever done. So yeah, we had a small hand.
I loved that pairing. I wish we could have gone everywhere with them. I just think us opening up for them, that was a great double bill, and I wish it could have gone on longer, because then we went out with Hurricane, and I don't really know what we would have had in common with that. But they took us around the country again, so that we needed to work, and they took us around the country once again, hitting all the same clubs we hit with Danger about 3 months earlier. But it kept us working, and that's important.
That's right. You know what? After that happened, then I go back to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You guys remain in New York. You remain in New York many years afterwards. You form a band, the Loveless, and Tales of Gin and Salvation. Tales of Gin and Salvation. Is that what the name of the album? Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of those songs were slated to be some sort of version of an Electric Angels album.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Those were some of our would have been second album songs and something like that. We had a lot of material. We tried out a few guitar players, and it was probably going to be some weird Electric Angels part 2. Same thing with Candy. It doesn't work with Electric Angels. It just doesn't work. The other thing didn't work. It's like, but it took us a little while to finally rechristen ourselves as the Loveless, and the guy that we ended up bringing in was the guy that we knew from Sony, John Separano, and great guitar player. And that album was just completely self-produced. We recorded it in Inglewood, New Jersey, with Tony Bennett's son Day as the engineer. And I think we were in the Bennett house, the studio in the house. And we just made it in our own time with, I think the whole thing was maybe 10 grand or something like that. I don't really remember, but
one of the first bands to do it completely indie style, right? I mean, you guys did it all on your own.
Yeah. And Shane was really good about, Shane has a good eye. And I think he is the guy that sort of fashioned all the cover art and all the insert stuff. We went around the city, did one photo shoot for the band. And then completely self-produced it, and we sold them all out. But Loveless only played we only played like
shows.
24 gigs, all in Manhattan. We never went anywhere else. And then it's just some of that band, frictions are like, yeah.
Well, and after those big three, this is where you're still sticking with your guy, Jonathan Daniel, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is just hearsay at this point. Did you form some sort of unit that was called the Bel Airs, which had an album called 3 Men, 3 Chords, 3 Songs? Were you playing on any of those stuff?
I think I've heard about that because some people have asked me, do you have demo tapes? I don't even know what that is. But Jonathan was kind of like doing little side things. Like while we were playing with John Separano in our band, he was also fronting his own band called Jet Set 6. But Jonathan produced their album. So it just, we were kind of just working and playing every now and then. And John just was playing guitar with us, but he had his own band that he was fronting on the side. And Jonathan produced that album. So Jonathan was doing all these little things. So maybe the Bel Airs was just one of those things, but I wasn't involved.
Well, see, there you go. I wish I would have saved that for fact or fiction. I would never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But as Federock says right there in that comment, John Schubert is the heart of all these 3 bands. Yeah, no doubt about it.
I'm the George Harrison of the bands, I'm the Beatle. But one of the things that was always difficult for me was, to me, a band is a very fragile ecosystem. I think you would agree with that. And you're playing with people that you have put 100% of your faith in, that we are collectively going to make this work. And you've invested your future. You're pushing things that are important to the side because I have this band that we need to make work. And God knows I did that for 15 years, all of it with Jonathan, and then like little different casts along the way. But my need to make this work is just part of who I am. And I got to say, when you left the Angels and we were sort of just floundering for a little while, nobody called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to join Mr. Big or something?" I got no phone calls from anybody. I'm not a network kind of guy anyway, but nobody was fishing for, "Hey, let's get this drummer from the Angels. I hear that they're breaking up," or something like that. I got nothing. So I stuck.
Maybe it's your loyalty. Maybe it's your damn loyalty in that sense. But I think it's a very good aspect to have.
To me, again, you want to play with people you're comfortable with. You want to play with people you're friends with, and that you have a brotherly connection with. You guys are all my brothers. I got a lot of other brothers, real ones, but you guys are my brothers because we spent so much time in vans and in motels and doing all these little other things just to make that.
We practiced so many weird places if you think about it. Like you just mentioned the liquor store or the liquor room at Madame Wong's West that we used to practice in. But do you also remember in Electric Angels when we lived in New York, we practiced across from a huge cemetery, correct? You remember that?
Yeah.
That's where we kind of cut all our demos and we did our own pre-production. We'd take a song, we break it down again, we break it down,
hard. We worked really hard all the time.
Every day.
Fooling around. We were always practicing. We were always practicing 3 or 4 days a week. Always.
But I'd look out the window and all I'd see was tombstones. I'm surprised we didn't make a darker album. The lyrics are always kind of like a bittersweet darkness if you listen to Jonathan's lyrics, you know. But getting back to the Loveless real quick, because this comment just came up. Joey Sykes, who we just had on the podcast just a couple weeks ago, he said that he tried out for the Loveless. He auditioned for the Loveless. Is that true?
I'm not sure. It's possible. We tried out a few guys.
Joey Sykes, baby. He plays in the Babies now. Come on.
And saw Joey Sykes with the Babies at a club in Redondo Beach called oh shoot. This was a few years ago. But like I was so excited to see Tony Brock because like probably no drummer had a bigger impact on me and Candy than Tony Brock in the Babies. Like I hear Tony Brockisms all over Candy tapes or something like that. It was really
this is the first time I can guarantee you in many a podcast that the name Tony Brock you've had a Tony Brock drop, you know. Mike Fasano will really produce. He will really respect that right now.
Yeah, I thought with the Babies that night.
Yeah. So Joey Sykes, I'm going to believe you. I'm going to say fact. Yes, you did actually audition for the Loveless. Unfortunately, yeah. Well, not fortunately, because Joey Sykes is doing fine right now. Like I said, if you want to go check out that podcast, folks that are in the chat, it was just a couple weeks ago. We had a really nice talk. But right now, we are here with John Schubert. We've been talking Candy, Electric Angels, the Loveless. And I know we've been going long because that's what we do. Whenever I think it's going to go short, and I tell my producer, yeah, we might be kind of like a really kind of tidy little podcast. No, we dive in deeper. We're getting in deeper because right now it's time for a segment we call Let the People Speak. Come on, Vic. Now, okay, Hawk, this is where we let the folks that we have, and like I said, we only really have one really, the Hawk was my Tony Brock. That's Mike Fasano. We only have one this week. It's a very special one because I reached out to a former band member of ours, Gilby Clark, and I said, do you have a question? Well, I actually reached out to Wayne Sharp as well, and we addressed Wayne Sharp's question earlier, your memories of working with Tony Visconti at Guitarist Studios. But also, Gilby Clark wants to know, this is his thing, Gilby Clark asks, whatever happened to the pink drum set?
You know what? Yeah, if you can find the Candy video, I'm playing my black Tama drum set that I had time, but my snare drum, Gilby's guitar guy painted it pink. And that's
painted all our guitars pink as well. We were the band that had all pink instruments, including a pink drum set. But where did that drum set go?
Well, it wasn't just the drum; it was just a snare drum. But that is my Ludwig standard student snare drum that I got for Christmas in 1971. And that snare drum it's called the shell is called acrolite. It's sort of like this aluminum alloy, and it just cracks. I remember sound men always go, "Your snare drum is killing." And it was just, and so Gilby's guy, Jim Foote, yeah, he probably had this can of pink paint on the shelf and go, "Oh, let me get the pink paint down." But he painted the snare drum pink. I've since stripped it, and
so you still have the drum.
I still got the drum. That is all Electric Angels stuff got stolen one night after you had left. I lost everything. Fortunately, that drum was with me at home. It is the only thing that has been with me for the entire journey. It's still a great, great drum. It still sounds great, and I love it. It's the only thing that really, if I lost it, I would just be crushed because it's been with me through everything, and I've had it almost 50 years now, and it's still a great little drum. Yeah.
Well, that last shot that Vic just put up there, that was a lot of people that have been with you as well. There is Jonathan on the left. There you are, gray-haired and all, like me, if I didn't use my hair dye still. Gilby Clark, of course. And who's that beautiful man right there on the stage right? That would be, actually, stage left. Our right, that would be Steve West of Danger Danger. Look at that photo. I love it. So, folks, that was Gilby's question. You want to know where that drum is? Because I think he actually wants to use it for one of his upcoming records as well. Or maybe his daughter's band as well. Gilby's been on the podcast. We've had some great talks as well. But it is time to move on to this part where I've had a few questions before regarding it, but this is a part where we say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And that dispels myths, rumors, and controversies surrounding our artist. So there's a couple of them. Okay. Sometimes it's just random questions, but sometimes it'll be fact or fiction. Were you ever in an LA street gang called the Leisure Guys? Yes or no, John?
I think I was.
That is a fact. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about the Leisure Guys and what it actually was, and how did you form this street gang?
The Leisure Guys was a bunch of out of work rock and roll musicians that had nowhere to go, no prospects, no cash, hence sneakers, sweatpants, t-shirts, and if I remember correctly, lots of trips to Baskin Robbins.
That was exactly right. That was another weird place that we practiced at. I think it was in Jonathan Daniels' father's garage. We turned it into a studio, and it was literally walking distance in Los Angeles to the nearest Baskin Robbins, and that would be our break pretty much every day. So that was yes, I was a member of the Leisure Guys as well. So there you go. Now this one just is an explanation. We need a definition of our never let the truth get in the way of a good story. The origin of your name, John the Hawk Schubert. Where did the Hawk come from?
If I remember, we were in New Orleans to play at Wayne Sharp's wedding. And we were hanging around in this really nice hotel that he got for us down in the French Quarter.
Yes.
And we were watching some some nature show or something about, and the Hawks was referred to as the strongest member of the bird family. And I'm thinking it was you. You just said, that's Schubert or something like I don't know, like I'm the guy in the band that's responsible and quietly, and
I come up with nicknames. It's kind of what I do. It's sort of my that is what I bring to the table sometimes. I do name people's names, nicknames in bands and stuff. So I will take credit for that, but that's interesting. But I when you said New Orleans, Wayne Sharp's wedding, immediate hangover.
Oh yeah. That was like 120% humidity when you walk
hurricanes, out. Hurricane drinks. It was the first time I ever discovered hurricane drinks. Didn't we do a gig out on that?
We did. One of the funnest gigs I think we ever did. It was the night before his wedding. We played at some club that was in a converted gas station. Do you remember? Like wait
a second. You set up, I think, on 2 pool tables. Was that or something? Was it the drum riser?
I think they put a piece of wood on the little hydraulic lifts where you lift the car up in the garage, and I'm on top of that or something like that. Either way, it was the sweatiest little club, but it was so fun because it was just so raw, that was fun. And we also played another club down there, but it was just punishingly humid. I just rivers of water running down our face, which was really messing up our hair, of course,
It's funny, man, when I get together with you and we talk about all things, then all of a sudden these, neurons open up in my brain, and I kind of do remember the kind of like little windows open up, like, oh my God, the gasoline station gig. I remember that, Yeah. Ryan said you would swoop in on the chicks. Wait a second. Did I say that? No, that wasn't the Hawk style. The Hawk was always very reserved. He'd stay up on a perch. There it is. There's John the Hawk Schubert right there. I love it. All right. My next never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Is it you on the debut Electric Angels album that emotionally pleads that you would not be taking your pants off?
Yes.
Please explain. I'm not taking my pants off.
Well, again,
it is.
Think about it. The 2 completely culturally opposite sides of my 30th birthday. in that day, in the morning, we get the 8-piece string ensemble doing tracks. Then we probably went out to lunch. And then later on, Tony said, I think it might've been the day that Marco came in and we did guitar on it.
Marco from Adamant's band, he came on to do a song called The Drinking Song. Yeah.
And then Tony says, and I'm bringing some friends of mine later on. We'll just do this big, loud chorus of, I never really loved you. I just drank too much. So we're like, okay, fine. All these people come into the studio. We're all kind of hovered around a mic and we're just singing along in the chorus, just, like 10 people or something. And this girl who, Tony said, this is so-and-so, and this is so-and-so. She just starts sort of grinding on me. And I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. And then everybody kind of steps away and she's like, come on, John, take your pants off. And I said, I'm not taking my pants off. And Tony just kept that in on the thing.
And you have to understand, folks, the tape, it wasn't Pro Tools at that, folks. It wasn't Pro Tools. The tape was rolling at that point. We got that on tape. If you want to listen to it tonight, you're going to first have to find the song, The Drinking Song by Electric Angels, which is an actually really good song. I enjoy that. There's a nice shot of the Electric Angels a little bit later. And then I remember we had a minor hit with that song, unbelievably, because it wasn't anything that the record company did. I think we did it on our own, right?
For some reason, there was a college radio station out in New Jersey at Seton Hall, WSOU, and they just, Electric Rattlesnake Kisses was our video and our single, but WSOU started playing The Drinking Song, and it would go up their little chart or something like that until it actually hit #1. And there was another guy I met, a guy I know with a radio show down in Ventura named Mark. He was playing it on his college station down near South Jersey. So if people went through the album, they were like going, I like this one, because it's obviously.
I think it was the last track on the album too, right?
And if you remember, you and I went out with a little tape recorder and recorded those bums in the alley singing. We bought them a 6-pack of beer and said, will you sing into the microphone? And that's them at the beginning singing the little Pub With No Beer song. Yeah.
Through the magic of recording arts, Tony was able to put together us going out on the streets of London, taping some, I guess the right way would say, with hobos. They were drunks, and we bought them some beer, and they said, would you sing a song? We recorded it. It ends up becoming the intro of the album. Plus, Tony splices in John Schubert's emotional plea of not taking his pants off, and hence that's our introduction to The Drinking Song. So please go check it out. My last never let the truth get in the way of a good story would be, how much is 50 guilders worth in Amsterdam? And we can move on from there.
About $25 will buy you a couple of pints, probably a little bit of chips or something like that. I'm guessing. I haven't been to Europe in a very long time, so I don't know.
So you know, the guilder doesn't even exist anymore. It's all about the euro. So yeah, there's no more guilder. That was just like sort of an inside joke between me and you, John. And we know we'll keep that one just between us. How about that? Folks, we're hanging out with John Schubert. I'm not going to take too much more of his time because he has graced us already with enough stories to break up into many, many clips, right? Federock, you'll do a great job of breaking up a lot of these historical stories that John Schubert has been able to share with us today. We've been talking with the drummer of Candy, Electric Angels, the Loveless, and not the Bel Airs. You know it? Yeah. So we've learned a lot as well. We have a little final sort of parting section called Heading Out to the Highway, which, do you have sort of an inspiring quote or sort of something that you can share with our audience that you've learned, that you've sort of taken and practiced to this day, whether it's a quote or something that you live by that you can share with all of us?
Well, I mean, my favorite quote is obviously by the Faces from Ooh La La, and that's, I wish that I knew what I know now when I was younger. And I don't really dwell on too much stuff, but after the demise of all the bands, I came to find that there were so many more things to do and so many more things to learn about. And that took me, and it's been 25 years since I played my last gig with the Loveless. So, I went to college, I got a master's degree. I've been teaching now for 13 years. And I didn't realize how many more things I would be able to learn and do because I wasn't in a band anymore. And I do miss it. I miss playing a lot. It was really the thing I liked best, was just playing live, not so much making records, but playing live. And, but again, the stoppage of all of that led to so many things that I'm interested in now. And it opened my mind up to music, art, all sorts of things. I had a great period of time in New York after that. So I think it's like, one thing is just like the old tried and true thing. If a door closes, another one is going to open. And I have found that to be always true. So many more doors open when you finally just start looking at other doors. It's amazing. You never really know what else there is to do until you just start looking at the other doors.
Wow. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this time we've been able to spend together, reminiscing about a lot of these things we've done together. And it's been a pleasure to play with you in many of these projects and bands and your musical experiences.
Roxie, I know you are a great rock and roll ambassador, not only just for Alice Cooper, but for all music and all the things that you do as well. And I can safely say this: you and I never had a bad moment in all the time. We never butted heads. You were the guy to play with. You were always upbeat, and you made all the other parts that were difficult easier to swallow, because, well, Ryan's always upbeat, so and I still see that in you today. You're still an upbeat guy. You're a positive guy. And I'm sure Alice and all the people in that crew know you to be that person. And all the pictures that I see of you just promoting rock and roll before the show out in the parking lot and stuff like that. I mean, that's who you are. And I love it. And I thank you for the time that we had together, and sharing in that great vibe that you always carry with you all the time.
Oh, well, thanks so much, John. I know there's a lot of people out there now that have watched this interview. They're going to want to find out a little bit more about you. If you don't mind, is it okay if we put up your social media? And I know you're on Instagram. And if you could just tell for the people that are listening to us on the audio platforms of how to get in touch with John Schubert. I know that you have Facebook and Candy. Yeah. Go ahead. Go with that.
I do these two pages for our band: Candy 1985, Electric Angels 1990, the year being the year the albums came out. And all the material that I've saved, it takes a while to go through it, but I've been scanning and putting stuff up. So if you're fans of either of the bands, and especially Electric Angels, Ryan, I put up every Danger Hurricane thing I could find from our up there. So there's a lot of stuff up there, and those are my things,
And so, and on your socials, if you want to go find out a little bit more about John and just ask him another question about, about taking his pants off or whatever, it's at Candy Drummer. That's on Instagram. At Schubert59, that would be Facebook, and at Candy_Drummer on Twitter. Yeah,
I gotta say, Ryan, your voluminous following has. I open up my computer and I see all these likes. I'm like, oh, what's going on? Like if I get 3 people liking something, it's always been a good day for me. And it's something I'm like, wow, who are all these people? But that's you. No, that's you being the ambassador.
Well, no, it's you being you on this show right now, because honestly, we've enjoyed the entire podcast. We've had so many cool stories. Plus, there's so much more stuff to go into and see, because we weren't able to put up the footage of us in London. I think Tony Visconti, because you sent it to me not that long ago. Tony Visconti, the producer of Electric Angels, put up a lot of 8mm film. He filmed the band walking around, and I showed it to Bianca, my wife. I showed her all this footage. She's like, "This is a little bit like the Beatles, isn't it?" And I was like, "It was exactly like the Beatles for me at that time, because we were this young band making our first album in London." I mean, did you get that footage from Tony? And where can people see this Electric Angels footage?
It's on the Electric Angels Facebook page. And yeah, for whatever reason, Tony, I messaged him a couple of times over the decades. But I just got an email from him saying one day, going, "Hey, I found this footage." And I'm going, "That's that footage," because I do remember going out that day. And then we did it again when we got back to New York. And he just, 30 years later, he steers it my way. And I'm like, yes, that's right. And so it's on the Electric Angels page, probably posted maybe sometime in the summer, maybe, I think. I'm not sure, but yeah, great footage. And you're right, it is a little Beatles-ish.
Beatlesque, man. Well, John Schubert, John the Hawk Schubert, strongest member of the Bird family and the drumming visual timekeeper. What can I say? Folks, you've been amazing on the chat. I know we've gone over time, but it's been worth it. You can go back, and I know that Federock will clip up some really good clips out of all of this. You'll be getting tagged in a lot of these at Candy Drummer in the next couple of weeks. But everybody, System 12-week challenge starts this weekend. So if John the Hawk Schubert has not inspired you to pick up a music, and if you want to play guitar, you know where to go with System 12. If you want to, I don't know, do you do lessons or anything like that? Have you
tried to kind of do it? The pandemic has kind of shut that down a little bit, but yeah.
Well, I'm going to just put it out there. If you have some drum questions, you're going to DM Mr. Schubert right there. If you have guitar questions, you know where to find me each and every Tuesday, because we do a live stream of In the Trenches podcast, except for next Tuesday, because next Tuesday is, guess what? It's my birthday next Tuesday, and we're just going to have a hang. It's my party, and I'll have one if I want to. We talked about it with the crew, and we're just going to have people come on and just hang out for about an hour next Tuesday. So that's December 1st. But this has been a pleasure, John. I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate the crowd being in the chat the whole time. Anything else you want to say out to your guys or to your because there's been a lot of Electric Angel fans and Candy fans alike sort of chiming in all throughout the chat. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for staying with us and even caring 30 years down the road. I mean, that's a long time ago, but for the people who still remember, we appreciate that. Yes, thank you.
Well, next time I'm in your neck of the woods, I'll look you up in Northern Cal, because that's where I'm from originally. And you know what? Open invitation to come back to Europe again. You got to come out to Sweden before we skedaddle out of here. But you know what? You got an open invitation. You have another couch. You have an open couch to sleep on. It's no problem.
Very
John Schubert, it's been a pleasure. Everybody, thanks again. Vic, thank you for putting up all those lovely photos and producing another stellar episode of In the Trenches. Folks, until next time, I'm Ryan Roxie. Enjoy the ride. See ya.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.